Hello, folks. This is not a show I planned on doing, but I kind of fell off the face of the earth, and people were texting me saying, "Hey, there's a lot going on. Why aren't you chiming in?" Well, let me tell you why, and let me tell you what's going on and what you can look forward to next week. All right, so here we are. All right, as all this stuff is coming out, it's not been a boring week. Something happened. So I've told you who watched me forever that when my hair was salt and pepper, God would bring me out and it would be at a tipping point and everything would come together in a crescendo and we'd be looking at Teresa. And basically, right in the midst of all of this over the last week or so, God says, okay, you're there. We're there. He's come to me in the night and he said, well, you're there. And so immediately my publisher sends me the entire draft of the book and says, now you got to read it. You got to read it and clean it up and make any changes you make. And I'm going off to Ireland for a week's vacation. And when I get back, I expect it on my desk, and we're going to start to basically get this thing ready to go out. So I'm expecting within the next week or two, we're going to have an announcement for the tentative release date of the book. And what I'm going to be doing, have actually done a little bit of, is working with my editor and also with a publicist, decide, well, once we get it out, what are we going to do? Am I going to need money? And if so, what am I going to do? So basically, that's all on my plate. And that made me have to say, that's got to be the most important thing, because what God showed me is that when this comes out, the whole world is going to have to change its perspective. And that's what this book is for. That's what the last 57 years of my life was for. Book one is basically to lay the foundation so that when this comes, we're ready to rebuild the house, because you can't rebuild a house. We can't have this reset and have it work unless we have the foundation laid. And this current book that's going to be coming out here now in the next few weeks is how to take us from understanding what's been done to us to collapse us, understand what made America great, what's been done to bring us to the current point. We're on a tipping point and probably going into, whether we realize it or not, a major financial collapse, to the point where we restore the public. And that's what this next book is about. And then the third book is already queued up. I've already submitted to the publisher. We're just looking at when we're going to release it. It'll probably be the first quarter of 2026. And what that does is takes us further down the rabbit hole. It takes us to a point where we've restored the republic, where the financial reset has happened. And now we have to understand that the kingdom that God wants to usher in is not just about money. It's not just about materialism. It's about freeing us from the debt trap that we're in, so that what? So that we can pursue self-growth, so that we can pursue spirituality, where we can have the revival that he wants. That's what this is all about. But anyway, what's been happening in the last week and a half that I have no idea of, because I really literally haven't had a chance to watch anything. But at least I know the titles of what's flowing around. And so what I want to say to you is, I'm never the first guy out with a piece of news. I never, ever. It's not my intent, not my purpose. Basically, there are lots of people who can handle a news story as it comes out, and they can give you the minute to minute on it. But that's not the assignment God gave me. God says, no, 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 no. You're supposed to do the big picture. You're supposed to position yourself 60,000 feet up in the air, and you're supposed to tie all the dots together so that when it all comes down, it's not just a story. It's a vision. It's an understanding of what's happening to us. So I'm just going off the top of my head. There's no preparation for this at all. Basically, Curtis, the guy who helps me in the background, who's so gracious to volunteer, called me and said, people are wanting to know where you're at. So I stopped working on the book, and I just got up and made a cup of coffee and came over here with zero prep. So here we go. This is extemporaneous to a degree that you can't even believe. Normally when I talk and it looks like I'm just being extemporaneous, I've at least thought about what I'm going to say and put it in some kind of order. Didn't even have time to do that. So here we go. I'm just going to rattle off some things that are happening and ask you, is there relevance? Is there some connectivity to it? So let me see what's kind of going on. Oh, we got a government shutdown. You probably know about that. And we're not calling it the Department of Defense anymore. We're calling it the Department of War. And we're calling our military generals in and saying no more LGTB, and you will all be fit and you will all be ready for action. And then we've got all kinds of hotspots around the world. We've got whatever Russia's doing in Ukraine, which I haven't had a chance to check in on for a week. We've got whatever is happening in Venezuela. And is there Any significance to that? Well, let's see. We've called the gangs cartels and said that we have the right to go in wherever they are and take them out. And then my son's in logistics. And so what does he say to me? He says, Dad, look around, look around, look around, look at what's happening. He says, they're staging. They're staging. So basically, let's take that and ask, why are they staging? There's any multitude of things that could be coming down. But look at fences going up in Washington. Look at troops being deployed in Washington and Chicago and elsewhere. And look at the push that basically says, finally, we got our first indictment. And then what is Trump saying to Pam Bondi? Not fast enough. There's all kinds of whistleblowers out there. You need to get your department on the ball, and you need to get every paper that needs to be signed so that those whistleblowers can come out in place. Why? What's that all telling us? It's telling us that we're moving to the crescendo, to the apex, to the moment when everything changes. Everything changes. And then we're seeing more in-depth stories on the currency resets than we've ever seen. I saw one the other day, and I only hope it's true. It said the first currency to reset will be the dinar. And what did it say? Something that really surprised me, and I only hope it's true. He said it said that Iraq has now reached a point where we don't have to worry about going to redemption centers when that currency revalues, because they have enough gold reservoirs, they have enough contracts, they have enough oil, they have enough natural resources, that it can be very simple. It can be just like, hey, I went to Europe last week and I didn't spend all my money, and I'm going into the bank and I'm going to hand them my euros and they're going to hand me some US dollars. They're saying it's going to be that simple. And then now, are we on some other thresholds? You bet your bippy we are. Silver. Silver's I think it's around $48. And everybody says, I'm not a silver expert, but they say you wait till it hits 50 and it's going to go ballistic. And so what's that telling us? That's another cue. That's everything ties together. And I've just got to have a few days to sit down and take all these stories and bring them in and put them in order and be able to tell you the significance of each one of these events, so that I'm just not rambling on about this happened today and that happened today. I'm saying, here's the consequence and the significance of what is happening. So basically the currencies, if they reset, what's that telling us? It's telling us that the dollar, there's stuff happening with BRICS. It's telling us that the dollar is going to reset, not just currencies and other around the world, but the dollar, the global reset may be in play. And I don't know if you had it happen at your house, but my computer's been doing funky stuff most of the week. Well, is that an indication that something's happened in the quantum system? I don't know. I've got to go do the research. But there's too many balls in the air to say that this is just business as usual. Basically, everything that I can think of that would be on the table if we were about ready to move from our current slavery system into a financial reset that saw the Fed be done away with, or at least us telling that it has been done away with, that see us maybe, well, let's see now, what else happened? So we're talking about the Fed being dismantled, and Trump went to the UN, and I guess the only way I can put it is he gave him a dressing down. And is that significant? Well, he wasn't going to just come out and say, hey, I'm going to get out of the not the Fed. I'm sorry, I said Fed, I meant UN. I'm not just going to get out of the UN, but he's giving him a warning. Hey, wake up. So I think that there's chances that in the very near future, the Fed might be gone, and we might be making, at least in the next few months, overtures to the UN to say it's now or never. Do this or get out, because we realize that you're a globalist organization. So put all that together, and I'm going to stop for a second. Now, it's all off the top of my head, so it wasn't in any succinct order. But of all the things that I said, is there one thing you can think of in your mind that might be the unifying factor that would tie it all together and make it make all sense? I'm going to give you a second. I'm going to be quiet for just a second. Think, what is the bow that you would put around this package that would make it make sense, that would unscramble it so that you could put a puzzle together and see what was going on? Well, I'm going to go back to history, and I'm going to tell you what I think I'm going to find when I do my research. So when I see all of this, I think back, let me see now. Anything in the past that has any relevance to this? Oh, we had an event happen when Reagan came in, and he basically took out the air traffic controllers. There's some significance to that. What did he do? He did something that really hadn't been done in the past, and he never let them come back. So now what's Trump doing? That takes me back to another point in history. The reset reminds me of something that happened in 1933. In 1933, we were under the Fed. We had been under the Fed since 1913, and all of a sudden we had the Great Depression, and 3 years into it, that started in 29, we went bankrupt. And here's what happened. Basically, there was a declaration made, an official congressional announcement, that all the departments in the United States of America existed in name only. And America was no longer a republic. It was a socialist communist order. And that since all the departments of the government were operating in name only, how are they going to run the government? We basically declared bankruptcy. So they said, don't worry. We're going to send an entire army of unelected bureaucrats in, and they're going to run the government from the inside. Talk about government inefficiency, not efficiency. But anyway, that in my mind was a soft coup. That was basically a takeover of our government, and that allowed them to insidiously, from behind the scenes, get control. And that brings me to another thing. That brings me to the Chevron deal. And I asked myself, well, what's that have to do with anything? And basically, those people representing not we the people, but representing the government of 1871, the corporation representing the global financial elite, basically puppeted as bureaucrats, not elected by we the people, not representing us, but representing only making the maximum profit for the corporations. What were they doing? And how is it analogous to what's happening now? They were taking over the government. Well, if you look at what happened when Trump first came in and joined forces with Elon Musk, what do they tell us he's going to do? Doge. And what's it going to be about? Well, it's going to be about basically getting $2 trillion of wasted money back. No, it wasn't, folks. Yes, there was some money received that came back that we got. That wasn't really what it was about. What do they always say? Follow the money, you'll find the crooks. It was about finding out who the crooks were. It was about taking their money because they were doing illegal, illicit things, and under the law and under provisions that Trump had made by declaring national emergency, that gave us the opportunity, once we recognized and found out who these people were, to take their assets. And what's that do? That positions us for what I think is happening behind the scenes, the reset. Because if we're going to go from a declining dollar that's now only worth 4 cents, and we're going to have a financial reset, and we're going to go to a commodity-backed system, and we're going to back it by gold, then we have to have those assets. And what does my Bible tell me? My Bible tells me those assets have been stored up just like a whole bunch of nuts for a squirrel to get through the winter. It's basically been taken systematically in the last several months from the financial elite and basically stored up to do what? To provide the funds to allow the financial reset, so that, yes, we will have a financial collapse, but it won't be like 29. It won't be like 08. It'll be a real quick dip down and right back up again, because everything has been set up in the background. The quantum financial system is ready to go, and the SAR is ready to kick in. The reset's ready to happen. The currencies are ready to devalue. Gold's at an all-time high. Silver's at an all-time high. Everything is indicating that the paper currency is devaluing, and therefore ready for the reset. So that's what I think is happening. Now, what is the answer to the question I ask you? I think the most important piece of all of this that will tie it together, once I've had a little time to sit down and think about it, is what is happening with the shutdown. So now we go back to what I explained a second ago, what happened in 33, and I asked myself, is there anything similar? Well, what did Trump really want to do? What was really behind those? It was about what? What was our government founded on? A small federal government with power where? In the hands of local government and the states. So they took it all away from us in 29. This is to get it back. So what was Doge really secretly all about? Doge was about ferreting out the rats and finding out where their money was, finding out who they were, preparing the necessary documents to make arrest. So preparing for the whistleblowers. And that's why, despite the fact that Pam Bondi came in and issued a warrant for Comey's arrest, Trump is coming knocking on her door. Pam, You're not going fast enough. Pam, I have a whole army of whistleblowers stacked up, ready to go. And why is that important? Because when they come out, we're going to find out the very most important thing that triggers all of this. What is it? I'll tell you what it is. It's that the election in 2016 was stolen. Now, wait a minute. And we haven't had an honest election since McKinley was elected in the early 1800s. And we'll find out the significance of Venezuela and what they did with the computers and basically how they were involved in stealing elections in a total of 72 nations. And once we find all of that out, guess what's going to happen? Let's go right back to 1929, except, I'm sorry, 1933, except it just being an isolated event that happens with the U.S. It's going to be worldwide, global, when that many governments in the world find out that their elections have been stolen. You're going to see banks fail. You're going to see massive numbers of corporations fail. You're going to see who knows how many politicians taken out. And what's that going to mean? Kicking in of the Constitution and of the law of war, where what? We have a special election and basically have 120 days to get our act together so that we can go in and fill those vacant positions. And so I have a message for the youth. You guys are sitting out there frustrated because you don't have the job opportunities you want. Well, guess what? There's about to be so many opportunities come up you can't imagine. What I think Trump is going to do with this shutdown is he's furloughing these people, meaning they're basically fired. He then can call back the ones that he wants. So that lets him to get around the problems that he's having getting rid of the legal immigrants, where they're pushing him in the courts. He can do that during the shutdown. It gets around where he's trying to fire people and they're saying you can't. So all of a sudden, in the shadow of this shutdown, illegal immigrants start to be taken out. Maybe martial law is put into place. Maybe it's a rolling martial law that goes from sanctuary city to sanctuary city, and we find out when it's all over with that who knows how many illegals have been gotten out of the country. Maybe we find out that while all of this was going on, there was a reset occurring in the financial system. And when for verbally speaking, the lights come back on. I mean, I don't think they're going to shut the lights off, but what I mean is when the dust settles, we find out what all of this was really about. And it was about basically the reset and about getting control and about doing what our Constitution said we were supposed to do, establishing a small government. So I think at a minimum, there's going to be 100,000 people who are not going to come back. I don't know the numbers because I haven't gone in and done the homework, but there are thousands, tens of thousands that have already taken furlough in order that they get some financial remuneration for basically resigning early. But there's still a mountain of them out there that haven't, and either they're going to have the opportunity to take that furlough voluntarily, or they just won't be called back. So what I guess I'm saying is I see so many things out there that I'd be doing you an injustice if I tried to come in and say, I got it all. I understand it. Off the top of my head, I'm so smart, I figured it out. Well, I don't think I have. And anybody who's just telling you one piece of that, it's not what you need to hear. So I'm going to get this book out the door. I think I'm in ready position where I can hopefully get it out to the publisher yet today. And then I'm going to take the weekend. I don't know when I'll have all this put together. It's a massive assignment, but I'm hoping that by Tuesday or Wednesday, I'll have a show put together for you that connects the dots, that combines all this together, and at least gives us somewhat of an understanding of what is going on. And maybe by then we'll already know. I don't know. But I'm not willing to come out here and get out from over my skis telling you I know what's going on. I have some inclinations. And I think I see a lot of the things, but now I have to go in and connect the dots. So I have to go in and get some facts to go along with what I think God's been showing me. So that's all I wanted to tell you. There is so much going on that you can't even believe it. And I believe that Donald Trump is sending a message to the world. This is my closing statement. Anybody who thinks they're going to take advantage of what's going on right now with this reset, think again. This is no longer the Department of Defense. This is the Department of War, and our military is now called to action and into readiness. And we have the military stationed for fast response for any of you guys who are thinking that you're going to go out of there and commit terrorist acts against this country. We're ready for you. Donald Trump is giving the United States of America and the world notice that it's go time, that everything that needs to be put in place in order to have this reset is in place. So do I know how the sequence in which they're going to follow this? No, I don't. But here's what I think. I think that the central thing is the shutdown. And I think that during that, we may be doing the reset behind the scenes so that when everything is brought down intentionally, we can bring it right back up because we've been running in tandem. And so that takes us into XRP and into crypto and in quantum conventional and into Nasara and Gasara. There's so many variables out there. It's not funny, but I'll close with this. I think now's the time. I think we're at the tipping point of all tipping points, and every indication that I see is that Donald Trump has given us all kinds of cues, and those cues line up in one thing. We're winning. And then I want to tie it into Kim Clement. And because I think there's a lot of people who are just win. Well, I followed Kim Clement for years, and I met him in person because I lived in Chicago, and he came there to do an event. So he said we would have a very interesting spring. Well, we not only had an interesting spring, but we're having a pretty interesting fall, but we're just coming into fall. So what did he have to say about the fall? He said the fall was going to be the time of the falls. So if you put all this together, I think you see that we're right on the cusp of that. There's never been so many things going on at one time that indicated that the whistleblowers are going to come out. The bad guys were going to be arrested. We were going to be shown that they have been tribunals going on. We're going to see high profile people arrested. I think that soon we're probably going to see some of the highest ranking people in this country arrested, like maybe Hillary and maybe Obama. I don't know. But what I think Kim Clement was saying is, we've had our chaotic spring. We're now having our release of whistleblowers in the fall that will lead to the fall and toppling of many of the people that have controlled us. And then what did he say next? Before I say that, let me give you a little bit of insight from how God comes and talks to me. So I get this book from my publisher and says, we're done with our part. Now you read it and make any corrections you want. And she says, we can have it out by the 20th of October. And I said, I don't feel that's right. So we're going to be talking on Monday. So I went and prayed. And what I heard was Thanksgiving. You don't want it out before Thanksgiving. Things are going to start to rock and roll now, but they'll be at the apex by by Thanksgiving. So what does that tell us? Well, there's a bunch of other pieces that are falling down, and it looks like the indications are that November is when things are really going to start up. And if the reset hasn't happened, because it may take quite a while, it may come in different phases. I don't know. I believe that basically it's going to be at the crescendo, at the peak in November. So we're going to have a talk on Monday, and I'm sorry, a week from Monday, because she's out of town in Ireland on vacation. I'm jealous. And when she gets back, we'll set the timeline for when this book is going to come out. But I think we're going into what? And Kim Clement says, hey, you'll be happy by Christmas. So I think this long wait has happened. And then the other day, Eric Trump was on, and he's releasing a new book. And I've not read it. I haven't had a chance to review it, but I want to make a comment on it. What it talks about is everything that the Trump family's been through, all the warfare that's been against them, everything they've done to try to intimidate them, to try to tear their family apart, etc. I think it would be a very interesting read that would tell you an awful lot about what's been done to keep us in slavery. So I follow Trump ardently. I find him to be a man who has now surrendered to God. And I would suggest that you at least go out and go on Amazon and get a peek at the book, read it, see if you want to buy it. I think that it's another thing that's basically in God's hand. It's giving us another piece that I think might give us some in-depth understanding of when you stand up against the elite, brutality comes against you. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye for today. I know it may sound like a ramble, but truly, this is just 100% extemporaneous. I just came on here to say, I don't know what's going on, but I think I've got some ideas. So I can't even promise you the day I'll do that show that I'm talking about. My hope is that I can get it done by Wednesday. I canceled everything I had this week, and I canceled half of what I had last week, because here's what I think. God always showed me that the most important thing I could do was to get these books out. And this next book, I have to give. If there's anybody listening who can help me, This book was written for the school kids, for the people in junior high school who will be our next generation of voters. I need to get somebody in the Department of Education so that I can show them this book and show them that it is the easiest to read book you could possibly imagine. That in one small book, you get a 250-year explanation of what made America great, how it's been torn apart, and how we can take it back. And that is something that this next generation needs to know before they reach voting age. And this book is also very important for what? For the millennials and the Generation Zs, because they're so frustrated. So one of the big items in this book is this. And I'm going to start doing 1-minute pieces on this to basically direct at those people. You feel frustrated. You feel like your parents had it so much easier than you. Money was worth more. Jobs were more secure. So basically, all this is going to change. And there's going to be a multitude of opportunities that are going to come. And you don't have to worry about that college education not giving you the money that you want. You can go out and just look at your skill set. Look at all the things that I'm going to basically be telling you. I just finished the last chapter of the book. I just finished reviewing it. And there's about 130 different points in there that I encapsulate as I close this book out. And what it spells is opportunity. Opportunity for the next generation, for the generation that's been sitting, waiting, frustrated because they couldn't get married. They couldn't buy a house. They couldn't save. They couldn't. It's all going to change, folks. It's all going to change. So I guess I'll make this last part a sales pitch. I'll be announcing this book in a few weeks. And it's been the culmination of 57 years worth of my life. And as soon as we get it out the door, guess what we're going to do? God always has me prepared in advance. I'm going to send book 3 to the publisher, and then we're going to probably decide the date, and we're probably going to try to get it out in the first quarter. So with that, come and join me. Maybe I'll come back on earlier in the week to say, hey, here's the status report of where I'm at. I got to get off this book and get under some serious research. So I hope this helped a little bit. It doesn't really answer anything, but at least it lets you know I'm alive, and at least it lets you know I'm aware of what's going on. And now I just got to go get my shovel out and dig a deep hole and get in it and figure out what's going on. So the next time I see you, I'll have my box of puzzle pieces, and we'll try to put those puzzle pieces together and get some clarity. I won't have absolute certainty about anything, but I think I'll give you a lot to chew on. So with that, thanks for joining me, and hopefully we'll be doing the show that I've been talking about, maybe Wednesday, the latest on Thursday. Have a great weekend. Be blessed.